Good. So, welcome. This is a little bit of a different webinar, so to speak. I've just launched a poll. Please do answer it. So the aim of this really was just to have a bit of an informal session for any students who are potentially wanting to ask me any questions, any students who might be unsure maybe about what they do next. Because I know there's some big decisions going on at the moment, whether you're going to defer university, whether you're going to go to university, or loads of students have told us over the last, 12, 13 weeks that they're looking into apprenticeships now and they didn't really realise the opportunities around those, because sometimes you're just so stuck in education and doing your exams. So what I just wanted to do, just personally myself, was just be here for anyone if you wanted to ask me any questions and like help you on a bit more of a one-to-one basis. If you don't have any questions, don't worry about it. You can maybe hear from others. I'm going to be online for about 45 minutes or so. But what I did do, I did actually get Natasha on to start us off for about half an hour, who will be with us. Natasha, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Natasha Hall, and this year I decided to apply for a degree apprenticeship. So during quarantine, I've been applying everywhere and just sorting myself out and kind of getting a job eventually. And hopefully in September, I'll be in a role with the company.
Well, you will. And look, Natasha's quite good. By the way, guys, I'm just going to, I'll let you answer the poll, those last couple that have just come on, because it looks like we've got 100% year 12s, which basically means we've got loads of proactive students on the call who are already thinking about next year. Do I recognise many names? I recognise a few names there, which is good. I'm just going to end that poll. Oh, two more of you can do it. One more of you can do it, I think. Just get that poll done, because I think I'll leave it up. I'll tell you guys, it's basically, 100% year 12s. Let's have a look. What are your next steps? 40% uni, 20% apprenticeship, 40% not sure, which is perfect, really. And Natasha, from your point of view then, so you've just finished year 13, haven't you?
Yes.
So, and what grades, you're a high achiever, aren't you? What sort of grades are you predicted? I know you're not going to get them yet, but.
So I'm predicted to kind of get 3 Bs, hopefully, fingers crossed.
3 Bs, that's right. And you're from the West Mids, aren't you?
Yes, I am from the West Midlands.
Cool. And you've just been offered and accepted the degree level apprenticeship at Accenture.
Yes.
Which is amazing. So talk us through your journey, because everyone on here is a year 12. What were you doing in year 12?
To be honest, I was actually quite late in applying for both uni and apprenticeships, because I didn't know which one I wanted to pick, especially since because I went from a grammar school, so everyone was focusing, you're going to uni, doctors, lawyers, that's what they were focusing on. So I decided to kind of look what's out there. So I checked different websites, I checked Rate My Apprenticeship, Pathways, even the government website helps, and just applying everywhere. It doesn't matter if I didn't get anywhere or if I don't like the role, just applying and just see where it goes, especially since I didn't quite know where I wanted to go. I knew sort of maybe a degree apprenticeship, perhaps maybe somewhere in computer science, but I didn't really have an idea, so I just see what was out there, really.
Okay, cool. And what about, because I went to university, and despite my company, I don't actually mind where anyone goes. I just care that they know where they're going. And I think sometimes schools don't tell us the full story, because the labour market is changing all the time, and so therefore they know uni, but they maybe don't know apprenticeship so much. But why not university for you?
I have considered university, and I've still applied, just in case, as you always have to have a backup, especially since you don't know what the situation is going to be. I know for a fact half of my apprenticeships that I did apply for dropped me just because they're not taking anyone in this year because of COVID-19. So if, for example, any of the companies did drop me, I still had uni as a backup.
Fine. So you've got offers from uni as well, yeah?
Yeah, so I've got offers from uni as well, just in case. But personally, I think apprenticeships are much better as they offer more, because I understand uni in the sense of you experience a uni life and you get a degree out of it, but you can't expect much afterwards, especially since with a degree apprenticeship, you get a degree and you have experience and you don't have any debt, whereas you get debts and you might not get a job at the end of it as well.
And that's your viewpoint, Natasha, which I think is brilliant. So let me flip it on the uni side, because I went to uni, right? So my story was, do you know what? I got rejected into Loughborough. And so I thought, oh crap, what am I going to do now? So I went on a gap year. It's actually called Let's Live. And I interviewed them this morning because we're building our website for next year to make sure that students can have loads of interviews from different people like Natasha, who might go and do an apprenticeship route, or like the people that I was speaking to today about what I did when I went to New Zealand and I did that gap year. I taught PE and I played rugby and I travelled. But yeah, so then I went to Loughborough in the end because they let me in. I got in the end. And I do think it was amazing. I really do. Did it help me with my career? Probably not. Did it help me in my life? Definitely. But I think you're a certain type of person who is obviously mature. I wouldn't be doing this at your age, if I'm honest. Well, I definitely wasn't that mature. And you know what you want, and you can understand the benefits for an apprenticeship. But we've got 36% here who are thinking uni. We've got a year 13. Good to see you. By the way, guys, put in the chat box what you're thinking about doing next, and maybe put what you're using in terms of research, because all of the best year 12s, in my opinion, and that year 13, can you let us know who you are as well? Because just put it in the chat box. But the best year 12s for me are people that started to communicate with our company early, started to think about what they're passionate about, what they're interested in, and then they start to formulate that plan and apply for uni if they're interested, apply for apprenticeships early, like PwC, IBM, lots of these sort of companies. Sometimes they'll open up their apprenticeships in August, but then there's also stuff like, PwC, who I was on the phone with recently. They've got like a flying start program where there's different, BAE Systems have some great programs. Dyson have their own on-campus university. You actually get paid to go to university, and it's like an old sponsored degree, so to speak. So you'd still have a few weird sponsored degree things out there. You've also got the degree level apprenticeship, which you're doing, Natasha, which is you're working and then you go to uni as well. And then of course you've got the normal university route as well. One thing to note though is that if you do choose that university route, what is it? I think it's with a company, 70% of their graduates come from interns. So if you are going to go to uni, you've got to get that work experience and start getting your foot in the door early. Natasha, talk us through how you started to get your foot in the door to know that Accenture and other companies were good for you.
I guess I just took notes. So to apply for an apprenticeship, it isn't just straightforward. You do an online application form and you get a role. You have to do interviews. If it wasn't in quarantine, you would be able to go to the company and just see how it is. And from all these interactions you get from the companies, I made notes. So I made my opinions. I've put what I thought about the situations. I've also what they said to me and see how the overall aspect was. So if at the end I get 3-4 offers or something, I can compare the situations and see which one's the best one, to make the whole situation much easier. So for myself, I actually got 3 offers and I had to compare with like pros and cons, talking to people, just finding out what other people think, and then applying which one will be best for me.
And let's talk about that actually, because you maybe not mention the other company, but the company that you did go for, you had 2 apprenticeship offers, didn't you?
Yes.
And tell me the role in technology. Can you say the role that it happened?
So they were both in technology.
Fine.
One of them was a data analyst and one of them was a software developer. So they're similar-ish essence, and I had to still do the same degree. It was just in 2 different companies, and the roles that I would have to do afterwards will be slightly different. And mainly to decide which companies I did want to go for, I had to take into consideration their locations as well, because some companies are in a business park, then others are just on the high street almost as well.
So let's list what you did, because you did it yourself. So what things were really important to you, like maybe the top 3 things when looking at 2 of the jobs, both of the apprenticeships?
I would say salary is a big one. I think that's just what everyone wants, isn't it? Money. So I considered like the salary. Also, The location, so how far away from home it is, as I don't like to travel much. I've only just passed driving, so to travel 2 hours a day to work, I'm not quite confident yet,
And just on
perhaps.
that, Natasha, so I think the apprenticeship model, often you still live at home initially, save
Yes,
up that money, and yeah. I mean, I know a guy we placed at Fidelity 5 years ago, and now he saved up enough to buy like a house, like pretty much like with a small mortgage, you know, by living at home for 5 years and saving. But it is interesting just into that, because it's like JP Morgan, who have their offices down in Bournemouth, and you've got loads of different companies who actually do expect young people to relocate because the apprenticeship's so good, and they might be paying, I don't know, let's say 21k or so, and they expect you to maybe relocate on that. But most are in your situation where you live at home a bit longer, save up that money, and start progressing, I suppose, right?
definitely, yeah.
Okay.
That's my idea as
Yeah.
well. And I would say that the third point is perhaps the benefits that you get from the company as well. So perhaps how like how much your holidays are, if they're going to go with a pension, how big is it, if they're going to pay for your sickness, and just overall the different types of benefits and the niche things.
And you accepted, no, you kept going with both of them and got the contracts in, and then you made your decision, didn't you?
Yeah.
Which is quite a savvy thing to do. And it's the same, like technically, you're going to have to turn down the universities as well, aren't you?
Yes.
So,
In the end,
I mean, I don't know if you've turned down the other company yet, or have you kept them in? In fact, don't.
I still kept it up actually.
Yeah, exactly right. I just think that's the type of strategy, guys, that you can be looking at. For those year 12s going into year 13, and we've got it's Josabel, Josabel, I think it is, who's in year 13, looking at. I'm still deciding whether to go to uni or take an apprenticeship for economics. Mate, if you want, you can. If you want, you can, guys. Anyone can. We've only got a small group. You can just put your hand up, and we'll let you speak. We've got a question here saying, do you feel an apprenticeship offers you more independence and responsibility as opposed to going to uni? Top line, what about your view on that, Natasha? Then I'll give my opinion.
I would say both give you independence personally, because at uni, if you have to organize yourself, because the lecturers aren't going to give you things to do as such, whereas maybe at work they might do. But at the same time, with an apprenticeship, you're kind of in the working world, so you're almost taking a step away from being a child as essence, and so you have to start moving up the ladder as such, and start organizing your work and studying life as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, I think if you do an apprenticeship, there is more responsibility, definitely, because you're getting paid. As soon as you start, I remember when I left uni and I started getting my first job, that wasn't teaching. It was just straight in like proper, like, you know, business. I think I was just making lots of phone calls. It wasn't a graduate scheme or anything glamorous like that. I think it was £18,000 as a graduate I started. So I think you're even getting paid maybe similar, I think, just as coming straight out of school. But it's actually really hard to get used to just working. And you might find this, Natasha, when you start, but as soon as you start work, you're like, oh, wow, I'm not used to this. But ultimately, going to uni, it was 6 hours of lectures that I was doing. You know, you guys on here probably will do more. I did sports science, so I didn't do that many lectures. It wasn't that full on, but definitely university was easier. But uni allowed me to breathe, allowed me to play sport, do everything that I was passionate about, because I wasn't ready to work straight away. And back in my day, about 12 years ago, everyone went to uni still, really. Only a few did apprenticeships, didn't really know about it, whereas now people are a bit more savvy about it. What are your advice to a year 12 student who wants to go to uni but is still not sure what to study? Let me think about this one. So if you're not sure what to study but you want to go, I think you've got to say why are you going? What do you want to do? Like what's the end game? Like I was always so focused to go because of the extracurricular stuff. And we're doing some videos that I'm interviewing one of the heads of alumni, one of the heads of economics at a few universities in the next few weeks for this stuff we're doing in September. But it's all about why you're going. I wanted to go and play the best sport that I could, the best rugby, and that was Loughborough, and it was sports science. And I went and just followed my passion because I'm passionate about something. And I think if you choose to go down life in the route that is what you fully feel passionate about, got my words out in the end there, then you will not mess up. If you spend 55 grand or something you're passionate about and you love it, you're not going to mess up in your life. You know, you're gonna go there and do more things. You'll meet more people that are connected to what your purpose is. So you're not going to mess up. But what you do need to do, maybe where you will mess up, is not knowing what that is. So, you know, like trying to learn, what do I love? Is it sport? Is that enough to go to uni? Is it music? Is it friendships and societies and stuff that I want to go and experiment with at university? Sorry, I'm just blabbering on here, but there's a few things coming up. So I've got Ellen. Oh, Ellen, good to see you. And I'm terrible with names, guys, sometimes. That is my dyslexia. I'm not just joking it. So you're saying if you could do something different in year 13, what would you do study-wise? Natasha, what did you study?
I studied maths, physics and geography.
Do you love all those subjects?
I actually enjoyed them both in the lower years and then also into sixth form. So personally, I wouldn't choose different because the other subjects didn't quite fit with my personality, as well as like the exam wise at the end, because I'm quite a logical person. So to write massive essays isn't my thing. So the subjects I picked were quite my sort of area.
But that's good though. What you're saying there, you're self-aware. So young people on the webinar today, like thinking about, am I self-aware? Like I knew that I was not as academic as my friends, but I could probably put in more work than anyone else. So coursework was good for me. So I did double business studies, AVCEs, like basically BTEC, and I did PE. But I did because I liked them and I was interested in it. So I always think, you know, don't be pressured by your teachers and you know, not to drop one or whatever. You know, unless you want to go and be a doctor, you've got to do certain things. Most of the time, you can go and be an accountant without ever studying finance or banking or accountancy or economics. I know many people who are accountants who studied music. Let me just say, Ellen's saying, isn't apprenticeship preferred more or less than a university degree? Again, Ellen, no, you can't make those assumptions. It's all about you. Unfortunately, there's no easy answer because like what Natasha's about to go and do might be awful for you. It might be awful because you're going to have to go and do work plus study, which is degree level, you know, so you can't just go out and maybe get drunk on a Tuesday night. You've got to focus and go back to work on the Wednesday. And Natasha, that's something you feel mature enough to do, is that right?
Indeed, yeah. Especially since most of my friends, or if not all, have decided to go to uni. So there will be a clash in kind of responses to things, especially since with holidays, for example, at uni, you still have the holidays scheduled, whereas I will be working and I would have to book time off if I want to go or do evenings. I can't go and get drunk on a Tuesday with my friends, whereas I have to go work on the Wednesday. So I would have to be more mature, I guess, in the situation. But again, it depends on how you feel, if you can, how you are with your friends as well, I guess, and how you will react to things.
Okay, no, good. I'm aware that Natasha put you on the spot a little bit here, but I just wondered if anyone had any questions around you picking that apprenticeship, because I remember I was on the phone to Natasha sort of helping her with that. She didn't need much help, but just making sure that it's interesting when you've got so many choices, how you can you know, learn from other people when they make those choices. I've got a question here saying, how do you know what degree to choose? Again, it's all about where you want to go with your life, isn't it? My personal thing, I don't know if I think, yeah, for me to spend $9,000 a year on uni, I'd want to have a plan personally. That might just be play rugby. That's fine. You know, if that's going to make you happy, like I would still probably, would I do that? I probably would do it unless someone like Accenture or, you know, another company I could go and work at. But it all depends on you. Who knows, you know, if I was mature enough to do an apprenticeship, I'm not sure if I was. So, so that I've got in your apprenticeship, will you be, so I'm reading off the chat box. I'll come back to the Q&A in a second. In your apprenticeship, will you be around a lot of people your age? You will be, Natasha, won't you? I think I mean, it's a small office you're working in, though. It's a bit different to a big office, isn't it?
It depends on, because I'm doing a degree apprenticeship, you're going to get a lot of people my similar age bracket compared to, you won't get people older than 25 perhaps, but it depends on just who has applied and who gets through really. But I would say most of the people would be around my age.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think yours is in Warwick, isn't it? The cohort, I think there'll be probably about, I don't know, 10 to 20, maybe similar ages to
She was
you.
saying there's 3
Yeah, three
in
this
my
cohort,
role.
but then the last cohorts, they'll all be still
Oh,
similar ages, you know.
yeah.
Plus you've got your graduates as well, who
Yes.
again, depends, you know, I mean, look, what I know about apprenticeships is often the grads and the apprentices all merge together anyway.
Mhm.
Whereas if you go somewhere, I don't know, let's say EY or PwC, you're looking at 300, you know, and they all get together and they all do big things together. But it depends what you want, because you can't be friends with 300 people, can you? So I've got something here from SK. What do you think about choosing to study something at uni that you may not actually pursue afterwards? So you've actually asked more than this, but straight away to that's absolutely fine. Remember, you can be an accountant by doing a music degree. You know, you can do anything that you want to be with most things, other than, you know, a few things in medicine and law. No, law, you can go and study anything that you want and then do a law conversion. You can do that later. So, for example, I would love to study physics, but just because it's very interesting, because it's very interesting, but don't see myself continuing with it in the future. Like maybe I would go into finance or engineering. So SK, go study what you love. Also physics. If you like physics, you're lucky, because not many people in life maybe do. And often people who like physics, who are very well esteemed in terms of that way of thinking, you're going to hopefully go into something like finance or engineering, where that skill set and your probably attention to detail and the way that you process information will really make you a great candidate. Imagine physics versus sports science. You know, if I wanted someone in engineering, I'll probably go with someone with physics as a backup. So yeah, don't feel like it has to be pigeonholed into that. I wanted to go to uni, but I've decided that it isn't the right choice. But I am studying biology, chemistry, and physics. Wow. And I wanted to know what sort of routes those A levels opened up. Well, absolutely everything. So for me, when I look at that, I just think STEM. You know, so many STEM roles, like most of the apprenticeship roles, most of the graduate roles that are coming out at the moment are in technology, whether that be data science, whatever that might be. You know, you look at the algorithms you see now online. Everybody's tracking data, and data sells, and data is what it's all about. You look at your iPhone, all those metrics and all the things that I link, whether it's my Vitality health insurance app that tracks into how many steps I'm processing every day. That means that I get a free Starbucks drink every week. All that type of stuff is stuff that biology, chemistry, physics, someone with your sort of mindset and brain, you know, you're going to find interesting, I'm sure, because basically you're studying difficult subjects which require intelligence. You compare those to my subjects, and I wouldn't want me to be in charge of something around technology, because I'm probably not going to be that academically focused on it. How do you deal with the stress of not knowing how your path is going to map out? How do you deal with a job and university rejections? I don't know, Natasha, have you been rejected at all in your practice, or
Um,
you had it easy?
I would say I've had it easy compared to most situations, in the sense of I've not been rejected because I've been rubbish as such. It has always been there's been a situation, but I have in the past had rejections, and all I can say is just move on and learn from it, especially because when you get feedback from any, maybe not so much with uni, but with apprenticeships, they definitely give you feedback on where to improve, and you can always use that feedback to then move on and learn from. So next time you do apply somewhere else, you won't make the same mistakes.
No, it's good advice. And look, Natasha, I know that I only said I'd bring you on for the first bit, so I'm making you work harder than you needed to anyway.
It's fine.
I'm just gonna keep pinging through some of these questions, but thank you for popping on and giving us your time.
No problem.
Legend. Okay, and good luck at Accenture as well. And if there are any other questions for Natasha, just let me know. Natasha, I will just I'll leave you. I'll just put you down to attendee if you want to stay on anyway in the
Yep, that's
background.
fine.
Let me have a quick look. More. Change role to attendee. I'll see you in a sec.
Okay, see you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I didn't want to work Natasha too hard, because this is my job, you know, and she's literally just got that role, which is fantastic. And I think it's great. You notice how she was speaking there. The type of person who wants to go and do an apprenticeship, they are mature, quite often they do know what they want, which my challenge to you, if you're in year 12, for example, is try and figure that out nice and early, then decide, at least you've got those options. Whereas in year 12, I just would have been drifting through, not maybe going to events and thinking about that type of thing. How do you deal with stress of not knowing how your path is going to map out? How do you deal with jobs and rejections? We've already said this, haven't we? But look, guys, rejections are really important. Like, if you're not getting rejected, you're not trying hard enough, in my opinion. So you've got to be going for rejections, because the most successful people in society, if you're looking at success of like business, J.K. Rowling, what was it? I think her, to get published, she failed, I think, about 20 plus times. So imagine going there, Harry Potter, 20 times, and someone saying no every time. But look at her. You look at Howard Schultz, he's the owner of Starbucks. 150 no's before he got funding for Starbucks because they thought it was a rubbish idea. So just base yourself off, read up about everybody who fails, because everyone fails. I'll fail sometime today, I'm sure, but then I'll learn from it and I'll end up improving and I'll be successful. That's how it works. Katie, to get a job in the finance and accountancy sector, would you, I'm terrible at reading, would your career progress, would your career progress more with an apprenticeship or uni? Got there in the end. So Katie, again, it's over to you on that one. I do know that if you do the accountancy route, it takes 6 years. If you go university, that's 3 years. And then you go in and you do 3 years until you're qualified at one of the big four, for example. If you do it via the apprenticeship route, you can do it in 5 years, which is ultimately a 5-year apprenticeship. That's level 4 up to level 6. Excuse me. So accountancy, it has been known you can do it quicker. And that's probably one of those that have been around the longest, actually, and more apprenticeships are catching up with accountancy, where young people just generally know, like, for example, if I want to be a tradesperson, I know I'll do an apprenticeship. I won't really go and spend 50 grand at uni to do it. If I want to be an accountant and I know that, and maybe I don't want to go, I haven't got a university agenda, then yeah, it's a good idea to try and get into the apprenticeship route. Potentially, definitely apply for both and then have those options available. I still know people who are in apprenticeships who have still got deferred offers from university. So they're really playing the game to make sure that they've got all their options there. It's important that you let down somebody in a professional way if you don't go down their route. But I think it's not too bad a thing to have the option of that degree if you don't enjoy your pathway that you've selected. You've got loads of options, basically, guys. Ellen has said, what is your advice for deciding what subject or sector to go into for a degree level apprenticeship? If you're like the people we've heard about, like physics, STEM subjects, I would go into the STEM field, because that's where the most, you call it student recruitment, early talent. So that's graduates, internships, apprenticeships. More and more recruitment's going into STEM fields, because that's the way our economy is going. So they want young people to be coming out and giving technology solutions and improving the technology aspects of companies and making them more efficient. So I would go down that route. But remember, it's all about what you prefer. I've always liked sport, and there's not an overwhelming amount of potentially sport apprenticeships, because it's just not set up quite that way. So it's all about what you would want to do, my advice, though, is just, again, it's just down to you and what you're passionate about. Remember, it's about finding out what you're passionate about. So if you say that you like sport, okay, that's great, but how can you relate that back into maybe the world of business? And then when I do a bit of digging and start meeting people and figuring it out, is actually, I love communication skills. I love team bonding. I love winning a game and going out with my friends, and I love that camaraderie. Well, guess what? You can have that sort of atmosphere in maybe a sales team in a company, which is where I started my career. So it's about trying to figure out what you love over here and linking it into companies over here and what they might offer you. Because I guarantee you, at every big company, there would be a role that you would enjoy. But you just got to get the networks. You've got to go in and understand it and meet people and find out. Tom Stubb, I chose A-levels, maths, business and sociology, good subjects, and feel restricted in what apprenticeships or university courses I can do. I'm thinking about a degree apprenticeship in film or media. Would be great for me, but I didn't choose any of these at A-levels. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. So NBC Music, they own E and channels like that, make the Kardashians, I think, all that. They're made in Chelsea. Again, you don't need to be studying it. Okay, you do not need to be studying film, for example, but you do need passion. The company, the tech firm that Natasha's going to, again, you do not need to be studying a STEM subject. You just need to be really, really passionate about technology and how it's used in society and in business, and maybe also how that company uses it. So it's just passion. So you can do that through reading. You can, we've done webinars with the Financial Times, how you can use that to read up on what's happening. So it really isn't about your subjects. I had a couple of other examples there. Law, like I say, law, like Allen and Overy, who are a big multinational law firm. You do have to have, for example, I think it's ABB or pretty good A levels. But again, it doesn't matter what they're in. More often than not, companies are saying actually it's about doing well in your grades and being good at what you love rather than being good at what we tell you to be good at, because that's not really how life works anymore. So don't feel like you're going down a pigeonhole with what you're doing, and keep going with your A levels that you enjoy, because don't let a teacher or a parent or anything let you do something in your life that you don't really enjoy. I would say, even if you have to do science subjects to be a doctor, if you're not enjoying it and you don't think you're going to enjoy the career, then start listening to the alarm bells and think, is this for me? And maybe have a bit more time to think about that. Are degree level apprenticeships difficult to get? Yeah, they're getting more competitive. They're definitely getting more competitive because people are figuring them out, like you guys on this webinar. But the stats show that you still have more chance of, if you want to get into a big, like, sexy blue chip firm where you're going to get looked after, the salary will be quite good, and it's a big recognized company for your CV. You have got more chance of getting on to the majority of their apprenticeship schemes than you have their graduate schemes. I always ask companies this, and the reason is because most people go to uni, and most people apply for graduate schemes. So that's really important. So if I knew what company I was looking for, I'd definitely apply for the apprenticeship schemes because I probably got more chance. But every year, more and more are applying. On the flip side, more and more are becoming available. There's definitely still more graduate roles out there than there are apprenticeships, but there's far more people applying for the graduate roles. If you are going to go and do it on the graduate route, please, if you want to work in a big company that you or me might recognize, you've got to start getting into them early. So if you're going into year 13 next year, you've got to start coming to different events and meeting them and getting involved in that company early. You've got to be applying for their spring week or their summer internship schemes or an insight event at university. Or if they go to uni, you've got to go and meet them and say that you met this person, or come to one of my events from September and meet that person and put them on your LinkedIn profile and get to know the brand. You've got to be doing stuff like that to stand out. Okay. I'll probably do 10 more minutes, guys. It's good that you're all still here. Hopefully it's useful. Let me know in the chat box if it's not. Natasha is still giving advice in the chat box. I love that. Good. Have a read of that. Right. One more question here. So do you think I will have more career, by the way, if anyone wants to speak to me, just put your hand up and we'll let you speak. Do you think I'll have more career options and opportunities after university or an apprenticeship? I just did an interview this morning with one of our guys who we placed in a company in a small to medium sized firm, so SME, and he did an apprenticeship because he just didn't want to go to uni. He hated A levels really, and he's now finished his apprenticeship, went on a gap year, which paid for his apprenticeship paid for his gap year, and now he's back working for an organisation. Basically, when you start work, let's say I wanted to leave Pathway and go and get another job. They're not going to be asking me about my degree. They're going to be asking me about my experience. And that's already happening to people who have just done maybe 1 or 2 years of an apprenticeship. And then they go to the next one. It's about, okay, well, what did you learn there? What was your role as the account manager? Okay, what was one of your greatest challenges? What was one of your hardest clients to work with? How much money did you make on that? Or how big was the size of your project? These type of questions, if you answer them well and you're a good worker, they get you into the next opportunity. So long or the short is, apprenticeship or uni, there's more roles available for graduates, but it's a bit more competitive across the board. You still have some old school industries. I probably couldn't name them because I work with all of the best companies really where they do take on grads and apprentices, but you might get maybe some smaller companies like mine who maybe would look at a degree because they're not in tune with apprenticeships. Maybe that's the only time where working for an SME, they might be like, oh, I'd rather you have a degree because I'm old school, but that's getting more and more old school, and people are not really operating off that mentality of maybe our parents would when they were our age. Well, your age, I'm not your age. Sean says, what advice would you give for making your CV more personal? Will more personal statements stand out? Your CV more, so I guess your CV or your personal statement stand out? I guess if there's easy stuff you can do, isn't there? So like, you've just met someone who's got a job at Accenture. If you come on any of my webinars, you'll be meeting different people who work for different brands. If there's any time that someone inspires you, like, get onto that person on LinkedIn, whatever it might be, put them down on your CV, however you want to track it, and make sure that you put that in your personal statement for university. So if I'm applying, let's say something generic for economics at Brunel, I'd be saying, well, I've been on the EY webinar, I went to the IBM Insight event, I've had a meeting with, I've been involved in in a project with PwC, all these sort of things. And then these are the conversations and the people that I've been speaking to about why I wanted to come and study economics at Brunel. I've also done my research, blah, blah, blah. I know that you have a rugby team. I'd love to do that because I played for Kent, blah, blah, blah. So it's all about just making sure that you're just documenting your journey in your last 1, 2, 3 years at school or college, and just link it all back to your personal statement. But by meeting people, and you have so much access to meeting people through our program, make sure you've all done our survey and stuff like that for next year. Then you can just meet people and whack it down in your CV and your personal statement. That's what I would recommend. And people aren't ruthless enough with it. They're like, oh goodness, I didn't know I could put that down on my CV, or oh, I didn't know I could do X, Y, Z. Don't be that person. If you ever question anything that should be on your CV that maybe your mind's telling you that it should be, put it in. I was on a languages webinar recently with Alan and Overy about people that use languages in the world of work. And these guys, they all spoke different languages, but so many students were asking me on that webinar, should I put that I speak a fluent X? Should I speak that I have conversational French abilities? Yes, put it all down, because it might be the person that is looking for your CV or interviewing you is French, or has a similar skill set to what you've listed. It gives you conversational points in your interview. Hopefully, again, this is helpful. I feel like I'm blabbering on. So 5 more minutes, I guess. Do you think it could potentially be harder to get an apprenticeship in the current situation as in directly after the pandemic when we leave school? Yeah, it's true. The stats do show that companies are, this year in particular, sometimes they're delaying their start. So September might start in January. Some companies are still deciding what they're doing for 2021. And who knows how long the pandemic will be here for. And if ultimately the pandemic means that they're getting less, look at the markets as well. If the pandemic means that they're getting like less business, and that they're a market like BA, for example, or EasyJet, that they're going to be impacted, then it's probably going to have a knock-on effect. Because why would you as a CEO hire a bunch of graduates and apprentices if you've got no business the other end? But that's just across the whole labour market. So yeah, it is going to be slightly harder. But then the companies that I speak to as well, they're already planning, conversely, they're planning ahead for, if they've had to pause this year, they're planning ahead for next year. They might not know all the details yet. So you might have to make a decision a bit quicker next year if we're still here in December and maybe it's not back to normal. But ultimately, just don't look at it that way, because things will be harder, things will be easier. You guys are all in the same position, so it's all the same level playing field. Like my family, my parents would have had it easier than me because it would have been less competitive. You'll probably have it harder than me because it's more competitive. But remember, you're in that period where you're all on the same level, so that you're at no disadvantage. But we all know that maybe our parents, etc., if you had a degree, you'd walk into a job and it'd be maybe a little bit easier. Now it's a bit more competitive, but you've got way more opportunities at the same time. Views on going with more theoretical courses, physics, economics, versus more vocational ones. Again, guys, I love how simple this is, because just pick what you're passionate about. If you go and do accounting and you hate it, you'll be rubbish at it and you won't enjoy it and you won't be a happy person. If you go and pick economics, which you love, and you're happy and you enjoy it, guess what? You'll have conversations with people. You'll meet people who are like similar mindset. You'll progress through your university life better, and you'll be happy and you'll be successful. That's my opinion on things. Take different opinions from as you go through your journey, but do what makes you happy and do what you're passionate about, because companies, the vast majority, and there's a stat somewhere here, that's right, 80% of companies, I think it's 80% of companies do not care about where your degree came from. Do not care about where your degree came from. So in terms of, that they just in terms of what it is, in terms of what the subject is, and that's including doctors, that's including scientists. That's excluding scientists and doctors. 80% of firms don't actually mind what you're studying. So just get out there and study what you love. How do you start networking and meeting people in law as a year 13 student? Do you have any law events coming up? Yes, I've had lots, but hopefully I think you've been on them with Ellen and Ivory. We've got one more tomorrow where we're meeting the CTO, so the Chief Technology Officer. So that's on our events page on our website. But yeah, meeting people in law, again, if you've been on the webinars or go on YouTube, our YouTube channel, Pathway CTM, go and look at the Ellen and Ivory webinars that we've done. Now they only have their first names on there and they're not really meant to accept people on LinkedIn. That's their policy, but I'm just telling you what webinars we've had with them, and you can do with that what you want to do with it. There's always ways of connecting with people if you're on a similar platform such as this. So yeah, happy to help you out more on that. Katie, and I've got 3 more questions and one more from Katie over here as well. Maybe she's copied it. And then we'll wrap up, guys, because I've got to get something done by 3. But it's good that you guys have all stayed on this whole time. Can you maybe give me some feedback in the chat box as well? Because I've not done something like this before, just to see if it is interesting. How do I set up and use LinkedIn to network with different companies? Would this give me a big advantage when applying to apprenticeships? Good one, Katie. Let me know what one you want to apply for, and I'll tell you. But basically, yeah, look, if I'm, when we put out job adverts through my team and they add me on LinkedIn and I haven't put the job advert out there, I get impressed with it if they drop me a message. I do. I'd be very impressed, I think, if and I've heard this from various employers, if they've got an apprenticeship scheme. Remember, if it's really big and sometimes they might not know you, but let's say you're on a webinar with them and they're in charge of recruitment. You add them on LinkedIn and you drop them a message to tell them that you've just applied. Stuff like that. There's little tricks that you can do to make sure that you're front of mind. So yes, I would be doing that. I absolutely would. And how you can find people in charge of things, you can Google it and find everyone on LinkedIn. So hopefully that answers your question, Katie, and do give me an ad as well on LinkedIn so we can keep in touch. Cool. Okay. You're asking me loads of questions here. Humaraya, I think it is. Terrible with names. I have done mock trials, e.g. going to court, debating with a major candidate in school's mini election. Sounds fun. Completed law, work experience, and part of my school's debate team. Okay. However, by the time I am 20 and applying to law vacation schemes in my 3rd year of university, will all these experiences still be relevant to talk about my CV and interviews? You gotta ask yourself that question. You know the answer to the question. It's all about that journey leading up. And whenever people ask you an interview, quite often I would say, tell me about your life to date. And it's about picking things up. And if you tell me these little things that you just told me, I'm like, oh, this person, no matter what year they're in, no matter how old they are, they're a go-getter and they do more than most people. I want people who are like that in my organization. So all of those stories are really important. And all of those stories, by the way, are also really important when you go to the pub with people or the park or social situations. Bear with me one moment. Because again, that will help you link to people. Oh yes, I was in my debating team at uni or at school. And then bang, you create your network around people who are similar to you and you might enjoy that. Some people prefer to build networks of people who are completely different. But either way, by sharing your stories throughout your whole life, it's going to help you. You mentioned earlier that some apprentices deferred their uni courses as a backup. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. So apprentices deferring uni. What would you do if you changed your mind and wanted to change apprenticeship or decided to go to uni? It's the same thing though, isn't it? I think 1% of apprenticeships will ask you to pay money back if you leave. Just check it in your contract. It's just a job. If I want to leave my job, I'll look at my contract and go, okay, maybe been here for a long time, so it's 3 months notice, but excuse me, at your level, entry level, it'll be 1 month's notice, probably, maybe 3. When you're like, top of the organization and stuff, like maybe it's 6 months in big companies. But honestly, you can leave a company whenever you want and do whatever you want with your life. You're never tied to anything, just like university, but it might cost you $9,000 for the year. But, you can still get out and not pay for the remaining 2 years if you want to. That's all there for you. Ellen says, when should we start using, I can't read. When should we start using LinkedIn? Now, Ellen, do it now. So add it. We've got that's if you're over 13, I think is the age limit, but most people on here are year 11 plus. But yeah, you need to be on LinkedIn as soon as you can, in my opinion. Just if you want like a role in business and don't want to go and be a professional football player or something like that. Even musicians use it, or they're professional sports players, like my friends who are professional rugby players. They then use LinkedIn. They start ramping it up for when they come out of their career and they start engaging and networking with people. So there's actually it's across all industries, really, isn't it? But yeah, do it now. Add people who you connect with and you along your journey. Like there might be someone on this webinar who you see on from time to time, and you're like, oh, maybe they're like-minded like I am. I might add them on LinkedIn, and no one thinks twice about it really on LinkedIn. I accept everyone who adds me. Some people might be different, but I think it's good because it grows your network, because there must be a reason why they're adding you. Do employers care where you get your degree from? That's changing. It's still, some of it is still a bit old school, you red brick universities. But look, diversity and inclusion is now really important with employers. So they will tell me, they're like, look, instead of going to Cambridge and Oxford and Bristol and Bath, we actually want to mix it up now and go to different universities to go and get the talent from different areas. Because if you keep getting the same talent from the same area, you'll end up with the same results. And if you're an organization that keeps hiring 10 Chris McNamaras, then you're just going to get the same output. You need to hire different people from different races, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different abilities. And that comes with universities as well. So again, pick a uni that you'll be proud to go to, that you'll enjoy going to, and you'll have a good time at if you do choose to go to university. I chose mine because of the sport and how good it was, because of the course and the reputation. Okay, last couple ones. Would work experience at a big company be more impressive than a degree when it comes to your CV? Let me read that again. Would work experience at a big company be more impressive than a degree when it comes to your CV? It's just individual, isn't it? It's individual again. The way the market's changing is that degrees are less important. You could argue, you could say that, because there's lots of different ways to climb a tree now. There's not just one way. When our parents went to uni, it was all about vocational routes as apprenticeships, but now it's professional routes as apprenticeships too. So there's different ways of doing it. And if you're ever with a small firm who maybe don't see that, because they might be old school, you can educate them if you don't go to uni, that is. But look, it's you can't compare that, because when you go to uni and get a degree versus work experience, it's all about what you do there. If you just go and get a 2-1, then guess what? 80% of people have done that as well. I wouldn't be that impressed with it. Whenever I ask people about what you've done, it's about what else have you done. It's always about what else. Don't just go and do what else, and do more. Great advice, very knowledgeable. Thanks, Tom. This has been very useful and informative talk. Good. It's made me feel more proactive and happier about my future. There we go. Good 50 minutes spent. But that's why I started this company, because I love comments like that. Last question then. Do you think it's better to work in a small company or a big international company? Oh, good question, especially in the current situation. Well, look, the current situation, I think, would mean that big companies are a bit safer. Smaller companies, I would be looking on Companies House to look at maybe their balance sheets and financial statements. Sorry, not that you ought to do that, but look, in the current climate, you hear about lots of companies failing, don't you? Did you put anyone on furlough would be a question I might ask if I'm looking at a company now. But remember, there's no risk. If you're living at home or your rent's quite cheap, you haven't got a lot of risk. Hopefully hopefully you haven't got big families already at your age and lots of responsibilities, but your risks are quite low. So, follow where you want to go. My personal thing, and I'll end on this, guys, is I think when you're young, getting into a big company, putting it on your CV, just like, if you've got any doubts about apprenticeships versus university through your family, your heritage, your own life, imagine just sticking Sky or IBM or PwC or UBS or HSBC. Imagine sticking that on your CV. No one's going to think you're not a good candidate. If I have someone who's just spent, I don't know, let's say a 3-year apprenticeship at HSBC for my sales team or my accounting team or my finance team, I'm going to be like, these guys have been through a very hard process. They've been taught brilliantly, probably better than what I could train them in terms of, the different professionalisms that HSBC will have versus me. I'm going to want to hire them if they're a good candidate. So I like big business from that point of view. And it's something I didn't do, actually. I went to work at Sky eventually, but I didn't do that big grad scheme. And I think a lot of my friends that did do that, whether that's an apprenticeship scheme or a grad scheme, I think it's good if you can get in. But everyone's different. Like Alex, who I interviewed earlier, he just keeps working at SME, small to medium-sized enterprises, and he loves it because he gets to speak to the CEO all the time. And maybe people at Pathway think the same, hopefully. Right, one more quick question snuck in. I've been learning German for 3 months. I only know basic conversation. Is it worth putting on my LinkedIn profile? You're not listening to this webinar. You can answer that question yourself. Okay, so despite not being fully confident in speaking it, yes, because what does it do? It creates conversations, doesn't it? And I love it when people put stuff like, oh, I'm doing this at the moment, or I'm learning guitar level 1, but I'm trying to get to level 4 by the time I'm X. Or, like I'm learning German, I'm trying to get to fully conversational. That's something that I'm quite passionate about in my spare time. That should go on your little bio in LinkedIn if it's something that you're really passionate about. And it just brings your profile to life. And maybe you want to hear from other people who are doing similar things to you there. So remember, you just questioned yourself and you asked the question about whether I should put it on or not. If that ever happens, put it on. Because it's important that you share that sort of stuff. Guys, it's been nice. There's been 16 of us throughout the whole time. But yeah, well done on being involved. I quite enjoyed that, really. We can just get into the nitty gritty of it. But good luck with whatever you do, and do email into student@pathwayctm.com if you've got any questions at all, and then like the guys will follow up with you, or like if you've got a direct question for me, I can get back to it as well. I do check that inbox. This is the email. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for being on. Have a good afternoon. All right, and good luck.